Hey, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Petrinovich, joined as always by my co-host, Kelly Gilster.
Hi, everyone. I hope that you all had a great Easter weekend. Taylor, how was your Easter weekend?
Oh, it was so great. I think we've said this before, maybe on the Valentine's Day episode, but holidays when you have kids is just so much fun. I mean, of course, it looks a lot different from when you're, an adult and single or married with no kids, but I think it brings the whimsical back to some of these magical holidays. Our church actually did like a fun little carnival on the Saturday before Easter, so that was really cute, complete with cotton candy and a Ferris wheel and all those things. So the kids were happy.
Oh my gosh, my kids are so sugared out between their Thursday before Easter class party where they did an egg hunt and came home with so much candy. And then I think that just like trickled into Friday. And then Saturday, we had a family event with like lots of cookies and cupcakes. And then on Easter, it's like more candy, all the peeps, all the carrot cake. It's like these children need a detox and I need a detox as well.
I actually do think kids help teach you how to kind of like be on your toes a little bit, which is super applicable to working within the wedding industry, like in live events. Like you have to have that, quick thinking and quick action about you. All right, I'm gonna take us in the opposite direction here, guys. Okay, so welcome to week 3 of our all-star guest series. We are so excited. We've already had a filmmaker and a photographer on, and now we get to welcome on our very first planner, which we are so excited about. And you guys, when we were doing the selection process of who we wanted to bring on, we were pretty conscientious of who we were hand picking because we want to make sure that a really diverse selection of creatives and perspectives and value was brought to the podcast. And so Kate with Kate and Company felt like such a natural and perfect fit for the podcast. She's following up. If you missed last week, we brought on Mike Kazamatis, who is based in St. Louis. And that is also where Kate calls her home base. And we wanted to get the planner's perspective of kind of building this luxury market where luxury may not be the first thing you would call your local market, but it can be done. And we took some really great tangents and went down some unexpected roads during this conversation. And I have to say, I know we say that at the beginning of every episode that it was a really great one, but really, guys, this one was so great and I was so excited and we chatted for a lot longer. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but generally these episodes kind of fall in that like 35 to 40 minute mark, and this one went on for quite a bit longer just because it was so good. So we can't wait for you guys to listen. Kate is just such a wealth of knowledge. Kelly, anything to add before I toss it over to the interview?
No, I will say too, don't sleep on the show notes on this episode because we talked about a lot of really great resources that I think all of us should look into. So Kate has some really amazing resources available to the listeners. We pointed towards some other shop items that we have in our shop that were like hand in hand with exactly what we were discussing in the topic together. And so definitely head to the show notes after this episode and grab those resources that we pointed you towards because they're just going to be super, super valuable. And we're really excited about what Kate's offering is too.
This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petrinovich.
And I'm Kelly Gilster of 618 Studios.
And we are on a mission to help wedding filmmakers and photographers level up their businesses so you can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here.
Well, Kate, welcome to the podcast. Kelly and I couldn't be more excited to have this conversation today. If you guys have been listening to the podcast, last week we had Mike Kazamatis, who's in your local market, and now we're bringing you on from the planner's perspective of kind of this conversation of luxury truly can be anywhere. So we're so excited to dive in with you.
Heck yeah. Thanks, guys, so much for having me. Big shoes to fill to follow Mike. My goodness, that's exciting.
Well, I have to say, if you guys are watching on YouTube, Kate's background actually does rival Mike's background. Both of them have such style in their offices. So if you are not already following us on YouTube, head on over to that for this conversation. I think it'll be well worth it because this wallpaper is fabulous.
Thanks.
Great. Well, before we get into kind of the topic of the episode, can you just give a little bit of an idea of who you are and your background with our listeners so they can become more familiar with you?
Absolutely. So I'm Kate Turner. I am the founder and creative director of Kate and Company. We are a Midwest-based luxury event planning and design firm that was established in 2012. Throughout our tenure, we've been really big, we've been really small. As of today, we only offer full service event planning and design. So what that means is anything that you see in our portfolio, we've designed and planned. There's nothing that we would plan without designing and nothing we would design without planning. And that's been pretty true since our inception in 2012. This year, we are launching our education platform, Kate's Party People, which eats up a lot of my time. And then, of course, when I do have a few moments to spare, I have 3 little boys at home, a husband, and a male dog. So I'm surrounded by men everywhere at home.
Oh my goodness. You have a very full life, it sounds like. And I'm kind of like your opposite. I have 3 girls. So I've got all the feminine energy, you got all the masculine. It's so great.
Absolutely. Hence the pink wallpaper here at work. I can do. Although I was designing my boys' bathroom and I put pink wallpaper in it because I was like, you know what, I can. I have enough Minecraft and Legos and dinosaurs at home, so might as well throw some pink animal wall print in their bathroom. Why not?
That's so fun. I love that you said, I just kind of want to like talk about this for a second. I love that you said since the beginning of your business, you've always done all full service planning and design. And I think that's such a distinction for so many in the industry to kind of really learn about what that even means, because a lot of people in this industry and who listen to the podcast still refer to wedding planners as coordinators. And I think there's like a little bit of confusion as to these different terms that are being thrown around. Would you mind just giving us like a teeny tiny little crash course on the differences between what a planner or a coordinator might be offering?
Sure. So just a point of clarification too. So we've always done design and planning together, but we did have part of our offerings would be some like what some people might consider partial planning in the early stages. We haven't for many, many, many years, but I did want to provide a point of clarification on that. To be honest, I'm not the type of event planner that gets really hung up on the word planner versus coordinator versus designer. There's even some people in our industry who use the word stylist. Honestly, I would encourage people, and this is my philosophy, is whatever our couples are going to Google, that's the word I want to use, because really whatever is going to kick up that SEO is super important. To me, I think the distinction comes down to a coordinator traditionally is going to take something that has already been selected and bring it through to the finish line. So you might have already selected a florist or a photographer, and that coordinator is going to come in and help you coordinate your timeline and the finishing details, versus a planner is really with you from the beginning of the entire process, ideally. And then a designer, that's such a overused word in our industry. If I could change the word designer and the word producer, those would be 2 things I think we could use some clear definitions on. And a designer would be somebody not who's just directing you to the right stationer or the right linen company or the right production company, but somebody who's really able to do sketching and rendering and choose fabric and choose paint colors and really be with you in the muck of that process. Some people use the word designers and really they're really just bringing out that full team. And so we don't offer coordination because we're with you throughout the full process, but we do offer planning and design exclusively.
I love it. That's so great. This will be so awesome for people to just kind of hear those clear definitions. Because again, as everyone starts off, you start off your business and as a photographer or filmmaker and you don't work with a planner, you're working with the client exclusively, really, or maybe they have a venue coordinator. And then they start to dive into this world of working alongside of a planner. And that usually starts off with partial planning and then into full service and then into design or production. And so it's cool to hear where your guys' roles lie and to paint a picture for photographers and filmmakers to understand just the huge scope of work that you guys are providing to these clients.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we could all get on the same page as to what a coordinator does, it would be hugely beneficial to all of us because you even use the word venue coordinator. It's not a venue planner, it's not a venue designer, it's a venue coordinator. And their job is to coordinate the venue, which is different than a wedding coordinator's job, which is to coordinate the entire wedding. So I think to filmmakers and photographers and any industry professionals, if we can all get on the same page to what our terminology is, then our clients will have a better understanding. So if your clients are sending you to a coordinator, you could probably make an assumption until you have the opportunity to ask that they're not there for the full scope of the project. And I think for our couples, if we could use that word coordinator for the venue, it would be really helpful to those that do the partial and the coordinating because they're oftentimes bumping up against what does my venue coordinator do versus what do you do. It's not something I see that happens a lot at the top level, but it is something that's happening with newer planners, newer coordinators that are getting those questions a lot.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. So
So
Kate, when
good.
did you start Kate and Company? I don't think what year was that?
2012. So this is our 12th season that we are in. We're booking our 13th season. Um, but I've been in the industry for going on 16 years. So prior to Kate and Company, I worked for another wedding planner. Prior to that, I did corporate event planning for my family business. So started in the call center because like that's what my dad wanted me to do and answered phones for a long time. And then slowly just took over like meeting planning, which turned into trade show planning, which turned into like vendor appreciation, parties and things like that, until it honestly felt like a consolation prize to me. Like it was almost what I wanted to be doing, but not exactly. So in 2009, I got married, and in early 2012, went through a divorce. So yes, I am a divorced wedding planner. And I thought, a great time to get into the wedding industry would be just after getting a divorce. I don't know why, like that was what was in my mind. So that's when I started working for another wedding coordinator and then started Kate and Company in 2012 and then married my now husband, the love of my life, in 2013. So it was a busy time, a very, very busy time.
Lots going
Well,
on. Why not throw in a new business on top?
I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so there's always something.
I love it. I can
same.
relate to that so hard. Yeah.
I think Taylor and I
Right?
are both serial entrepreneurs as well.
Right.
Okay, so you started in 2012. You kind of had some experience prior working with a wedding planner. How did you know where you wanted to scale your business? Did you always know that you wanted to like climb to the top of your local market and aim for the luxury market? Or was it something that just kind of was more like developed over the years when you were, early on?
I mean, I thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it's hard to I still get that imposter syndrome to believe that I am somewhere near the top of our marketplace and that still just feels so odd to me. I think it's something that we always were striving for more than what we were seeing but I do think it develops slowly over time. I mean, I don't think most people like see I'm going to be the best physician or I'm going to be the best accountant or the best wedding planner. What I was doing was just there's got to be more than a gold Chiavari chair out there. There's got to be more than a plastic charger plate out there. And then it was at the time that social media and Pinterest was exploding and you would see all this beautiful imagery and think like, why don't I have that? Where can I get that? And I think it's because I came into this industry without blinders on. And I didn't really know that there was a box I was supposed to stay inside of. So, that the local rental company doesn't have this chair. Let me see if I can get it in Kansas City or in Chicago and I didn't know other people weren't doing that. And I think we've a little bit had a target on our back doing that because I'm often poo-pooed upon for not supporting enough local or not supporting my local vendors. And I feel like we try to find the best mix. We always want to support local, but not to the detriment of our client or the design. One thing we really challenged ourselves with in 2024 and going forward is not to use the same products more than once. Of course, something like a piece of glassware, that's going to be really hard, but we've really challenged ourselves with trying not to use the same linen more than once, trying not to use the same napkin more than once, trying not to use the same vessels. And it's really hard, but when you have that sort of drive, when you're building out the design, it does make it a little bit more interesting, the designs you're putting together. And so I'm very proud of where we are today. But it wasn't like I woke up in 2012 and was like, I'm going to do better than everyone else, because I don't feel like that's where I'm at. I think I woke up just thinking like, if so-and-so event planner in Jackson Hole has this plate, couldn't I have this plate too in St. Louis? It can't be that hard. Put it on a truck and drive it here, right?
Yeah, I think that for so long, so many people like we lean towards complacency in general, and it actually is really interesting to see how social media and even like reality shows, things like that, just us seeing like what's around in a more like consumable format does like make us push the boundaries and like brings out this level of like almost competitiveness a little bit, maybe not even with others, but maybe with ourselves too. Because I see that even in like the filmmaking world, the photography world, like the push forward is super fun to watch. And I think a lot of it did stem from like Instagram, Pinterest.
Yeah. I think Mike was really good at that. I think other photographers, filmmakers that I've seen are really good at just thinking it's not just providing their couples the same thing over and over again, but thinking through. If you think about where drone footage was and where it's come from, and a lot of that stems from we saw other people doing it. And so now we are trying to think, how can we do it? And how can we level it up one level to see if we can do it better than the last person? And I think that's really all we're all striving to do. Let's be honest, in the age that we live in, with how much we consume digitally, it's hard to have an original idea. We're all inspired by something someone else did, and then trying to put our own spin on it, our own take on it, make it our own idea. But we're all our inspiration is starting generally in the same realm.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys are listening and you didn't catch Mike's episode last week, definitely catch that, because it's almost like part one and it's a different perspective. But Mike and Kate work closely together, and Mike describes it as the luxury market didn't really exist where they are located. And so they kind of built it together. And he was someone who just always strives for more and kind of just felt like his local market was just, I think he described it as like, oh, this is good enough. Like, it's nice and it's good enough, but how can we like keep that, like fill that hunger that he had? And then Kate, he said he met you and was like, she speaks the same language as me. She wants more for like our local market and beyond. And so I think that was such a cool insight for him to bring into the episode, because a lot of filmmakers and photographers are always searching for ways that they can gain new planner relationships. And Taylor and I say that it's always so great to be able to gain a relationship with a planner who is maybe steps ahead of you, but not like miles ahead of you, so that you guys can really grow together. And it sounded like that's what you and Mike did.
Absolutely. And I will say it wasn't exactly conscious. It wasn't like he and I sat down for coffee one day and was like, all right, we're both going places, so like let's do it together. It's truly, I think we became somebody the other could depend on, because we've had times where there's been a hiccup and he has my back and I have his back, and the client's none the wiser. And that's the kind of people that I want to build out on my vendor teams. And it just so happens that he is an incredible photographer. I think a lot of his talent and what I look for when I'm considering filmmakers, when I'm considering photographers, he has a background in graphic design. So the way that he can look at the foreground and background of an image is just incredible. I don't have to worry about where my band chords are going to be if I'm working with like a new band who just doesn't have good chord management, and no matter how many times I ask them to turn the blue lights off, I know that he's going to have my back and I don't have to worry about him walking into that room. And I think he feels the same. He doesn't have to, though we enjoy, sit down and go through every minute detail of the design, because he knows what to expect from a cake and company wedding, and he can walk in and he can shoot it. And now if I'm going to be in a new place, he's the first person I want on my team outside of, the people who actually work with me, because I know that if something hits the fan with this new venue I've never worked in, he will be there to have my back. And I think that it's hugely important. Let's be honest, like the planners that are at the top tier, Lynn Easton is not going to be like, oh, Mike Casamatis sent me a random DM one day, so I should refer him a $6 million wedding. That's just not the way that it works. They use their trusted partners. So I think it's finding somebody who's on a similar level, or like you said, a few steps ahead, and then try to like continually get business with them and make each other better. It's the conversations of, is something as simple as like, do you have a styling mat that I can use for this? Or do you care if I run to, World Market and grab a few little trinkets to like put with this that might be meaningful with the couple? Or if you don't have time to pick up flowers for me to put in this styled flat lay, then can I go pick them up? It's all of those things and those conversations that we constantly made each other better. And so now we're kind of still chasing that high, so to speak, with the weddings as they get bigger and bigger. But somebody like that trusted partner will always be my first choice when I'm thinking about a vendor partner for a particular couple.
Yeah, it's like you're explaining the epitome of teamwork. And I think that's something that really shifts as you grow in the industry. Like I feel like in the maybe more mainstream or budget sectors, a lot of creatives are kind of in a like looking out for themselves mentality. But as you scale, it becomes much more team minded. And that's a point that we kind of like to drive home on the podcast. I would love to dig into a little bit because like you've mentioned glassware and chargers and looking out for the band cords and things like that. So how can creatives, so filmmakers and photographers who are capturing this imagery of these gorgeous events, like how can we best serve our planner partners, and like how can us understanding your world and what you're putting into it kind of contribute to that trust?
I mean, I think that like, we've already talked about step A, right? Just don't be a jerk, be a team player. Like that is step one. Step two, I think, is if you can be our eyes and ears when we can't be in a space. So let's say you have an inexperienced planner who gave you 15 minutes to shoot a space and they don't understand how much actually goes into it. I think when you're thinking about shooting, go in, focus on the corner of the space, making sure that you're not shooting a table without the candles being lit. And yes, theoretically, that is the planner's job or the florist's job to make sure that they get lit. But instead of saying, oh, well, they're not lit, so and this is how they gave it to me, I'm going to shoot it, take the extra 30 seconds to get that one table lit and shoot all of your tight shots there. I had a somewhat inexperienced photo video team go through a ballroom. They sent somebody ahead of time, a third photographer. Great. Thank you so much for doing that. But the person they sent was super inexperienced. She was like, I'm done. I shot the whole ballroom. And I was like, well, you're 30 minutes ahead of time. None of the candles are lit and all of the wine glasses are upside down because we had to move some tables. And it like didn't dawn on her. And a little bit, I was like, open your look at what you're photographing. I had an inexperienced photographer send me a bar, and there's this trash can that I had moved. And of course, the caterer moved it back because no one can ruin a bar quite like a caterer. And they shot it. And I think just the extra 5 seconds of that photographer to move the trash can out of the shot, I will never use that on my feed. So I think it's not just like see something and take a photo of it, but like actually look at what you're photographing to see if there's any improvements. Of course, we don't want you to change our design, But if you're taking a tight aerial shot of a place setting and that fork is crooked, just straighten it out. My team should sweep the room and catch all of those things, but sometimes you will get that catering team that came back through, or the florist when they lit those candles, they knocked the table a little bit and the glassware, fell over. Just like truly look at what you are photographing. The other
Mhm.
thing that you can do, again, we ask this of all of the caterers, but do not shoot butter on the table, sugar packets on the table, things like that.
Don't.
I don't care if you take them off and put them on the floor. I truly don't. Like, I know that's a huge health code violation, but I don't want them. And to be honest, I think if you're in the mid-tier, the marketplace, you don't realize that editorials will not pick up that event if you have those things on the tables. So just
Mhm.
understanding the extra 5 seconds you can take to make something even that much better.
Yeah.
I'm using Mike as my example just because you guys chatted with him, but one of my most saved invitation flat lays on my feed is the cheapest, ugliest invitation that we've ever done. And it's because Mike just styled it so damn perfectly and then put this big bow on it. And I don't like ribbons in my flat lays unless there was ribbon in the invitation, which there was, but he put it over the like middle of it and then just had these beautiful blooms. And I think it was the juxtaposition of him shooting a dark backdrop with a light invitation, and people save it all the time. And I'm like, really, the thing from an online
Minted or something.
resource? Yeah, I was just gonna say, can I say the thing from Minted with like 4 different ellipses in it because the client loved to put like dot, dot, dot something on there? That's what we're all gonna like save down. But I think it's just a testament of a photographer taking an extra 30 seconds to make me look good, which in the end made us both look really good.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is so good. And you guys, just shameless plug here. In our shop, we actually have exactly what Kate's talking about. We have our elevated shot list that Kelly and I compiled in partnership with an ultra luxury wedding planner, so that it walks you through these things to keep an eye on of what to straighten, what to remove, what to add, what to shift in a room or in a space to elevate your imagery. So if you want to grab that, it's at thelevelupco.com/shop. Shameless plug is over, but it is so important. And I think that's something that sets like, like a more elevated professional apart is not just walking in and being like, well, that's how it is. Like, I'm just going to shoot it. It's not my job. Like, it's quote unquote not my job to do this. But it's like, if you're being paid these prices, if you're working at this level, like that kind of is your job,
Yeah, I
to go
mean,
above and beyond.
we're all on the same team. We all have the same client. We're all in the same sandbox. And isn't it better for you and me and the florist and the venue if the room is shot in its best light? So, if that means lighting candles or adjusting the temperature of the lighting in the space or asking the band to turn off the blue lights. I mean, all of those things. And I have my own shameless plug because I've been dying to do this for so long. But we have a retreat called Landlocked Luxury we do every year. Our next one will be in Kansas City, Missouri in February of 2025. Don't ask me the dates because I actually don't know. But it's out there in the world. Someone knows it. It's just not me because I'm the creative. But I've been dying to do this, and I think we are going to do it at Landlocked, where we do a room and we send a bunch of photographers, filmmakers, and planners in and say there's 13 things wrong in this room. Figure out what they are. And it's going to be those little nuanced practice things of like, are the candles lit? Is that fork straight? Is the band lighting on correctly? And sort of grade people. So our 2 shameless plugs can be together because they go so hand in hand. I'm going to
Do
have to
them
like,
both, guys.
yes, do them both. Or maybe you guys should just come teach that class for me. And
Oh my
then,
gosh, that'd be
okay,
great.
yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
so
so fun.
I don't think a lot of people know that are listening that you're the founder of Landlocked Luxury, correct?
I sure am. I have 2 co-owners, Trent Broglin and Emily Broadbent, also photographers. And yes, so we did it the first 2 years in St. Louis, which is where I'm from. And then next year we're taking the show on the road. So we're going to Kansas City. And I think 2026 will probably end up being somewhere in Nebraska. So trying to keep it
Awesome.
home to the Midwest where I'm from, just because I believe wholeheartedly that those of us living in the middle of the country are doing incredible things, but we're often not recognized for it. So I want to support that mission.
Yeah. And just to bring overall awareness to where luxury can be truly found anywhere. It's not just New York and California, you know?
It's not. I think a lot of the people that we educate, we have some people overseas, we have some people in Canada. Like I'm finding as I learn more, I'm backing up, but Cake and Company does about 40% national and international destination weddings. And I'm flabbergasted when I go into new marketplaces just to learn about them. I haven't had the opportunity to do events in Canada, but a lot of the women that we educate are telling us just how the pricing models can be so different from a New York to a Canada. And that's why I love promoting what's happening in the middle of the United States, is because it's so transferable to those that are living in marketplaces that might be more at the lovely or premier pricing or the entry level pricing. You know, if I can share a little story, when I started out and I switched to a percentage based pricing, that's my pricing model. Um, my minimum at the time was $10,000 more. So my minimum $10,000 more than my competitors' all inclusive package. So I had to not only convince couples and their families to spend double, but almost triple with me, and to show that value and have those tough conversations. And it was really, really, really hard at the beginning. It's never easy to be the first person to do anything within your industry. Um, but a lot of my friends now who are planners are all charging more, and it's great. It's good for all of us if we're charging what we're worth, you know? So I think it's hard, but I think it's transferable to many markets.
Well, sometimes it just takes one person to kind of get the ball rolling, and then it makes it easier for everyone else to kind of hop on board. And I think that's true with every industry and every location. Is there's somebody has to go first, right? So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you're like, oh, I'm in, I don't actually really know, maybe Iowa, and like there's no, you know what I mean? Like go first. I think it's okay to
Yes.
go first, and I think that's super brave, and everyone will benefit.
Yes. It's really funny. So one of the women at Landlocked Luxury, she lives on a farm in Iowa. That you mentioned that, and I hope she listens to this. Shout out to Jess. But she was saying, and I was looking at her pricing with her. We did a one-on-one, and she was like, I can't charge more. I live on a remote farm in Iowa. And I was like, nobody cares where you live. They care if you have talent. They care if you make the process easy for them. They want customer service. What people at the top, couples booking people at the top, are paying for is the service. You get to the top and they're paying a little bit for the name, but it is the service. It's not firing off 37 CRM questionnaires and expecting your couples to fill them out, but instead collaborating with that planner on that timeline and taking it off of your client's plate. And I think, to me, when I'm considering a new vendor in the photography or filmmaking world, one of the very first flags for me, and it's not a good flag, it's a red flag, is that inquiry process for me so automated that I can't get to the answer I need, and or that person is saying congratulations to me when I'm not the person getting married. And so I think that people are paying for service, and it doesn't matter, because I can tell you Corbin Gherkin does not live in the middle of a city center. She lives very far out. David Beam, one of the top floral designers, he lives on a farm. It does not matter where you live. It matters your vision and your service and what you are providing to those couples. I'm on a tangent here a little bit. I apologize.
No, I love it.
No, I love that you brought that up, because I think in the mainstream market, for whatever reason, vendors hold like they hold on to that CRM of theirs so tightly. And as you kind of like scale, it's more about high touch, high touch, and that doesn't always include a CRM. Or if you use a CRM, it's so great for you to be using it. And I'm speaking to photographers and videographers, maybe less in the client facing or planner facing, and more underneath like your invoices or your contracts or things like that. But like to be, like you said, sending out 38 emails of your CRM, like it's a huge red flag that, and I know that we get every single time we drop that we don't love HoneyBook, we get so many DMs from people that are like, what's wrong with HoneyBook? I use HoneyBook. I think it's
Everything
great.
is wrong with HoneyBooks. Like, I swear to God, I'm going to get a cease and desist order from them someday. Like, it's fine. I am telling you, as a planner, I do not like to use vendors who have HoneyBook purely because of the wall that HoneyBook puts up that like really does not allow for collaboration. I did an entire talk on this with screenshot examples of why I don't like it.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay, so a follow-up question
My
we get
DMs are
is,
gonna blow up,
well,
yeah.
if I love a CRM, if I want to use a CRM, what's a great alternative? I do have a CRM. I use Dubsado, and actually, we finally have a discount code for you guys. Like, we've been promoting Dubsado left and right for over a year, so you can use the code level up 20 if you guys want to make the jump. But I do exactly what we were talking about. I just have my contracts and invoices, and actually my contact form on my website does plug into Dubsado just to keep all my leads in order, but I send off 0 emails. I have 0 automation, nothing like that. It's just like a place to keep everything kind of organized for like the back end. And I think that's really the best way to do it. And especially if you're not shooting 100 weddings a year, like you really don't need like a high level of automation. Like,
You don't. And I think that's the problem. People need to understand that you have permission to have different workflows for different types of clients, especially as you're transitioning from maybe entry level into, I like to call them premier because I think the word lovely is so condescending, but premier/lovely weddings and then into luxury. It's okay as you transition that you might have a very automated workflow for your lowest level spending clients who don't have a reputable planner, because not all planners are created the equal. So they don't have a reputable one. That's fine. Have a different workflow when you do get a reputable planner that you're working with. That's okay. I love ours go into a workflow. It's not a CRM. We use Asana project management software, but our leads go in there and we use it to track things. And of course, I saved email templates, but I'm just copying and pasting that into my Google so it feels really personal to my client. Of course, I use a software to send contracts. Of course, I use a software to send invoices. And of course, it's okay for photographers, filmmakers to send that to me. What I don't want to do is have to log in and get a special code every time that I get an email. And when you email through CRMs, it's not threaded. And so it's really hard for us to find information. And I'm just not willing, as a planner who uses probably 420 different vendors for all of my events coming up this year, I'm not willing to learn 400 different CRMs and communicate within them. So it may be selfish of me, but if you want my business, you have to make it easy for me and my couples to work with you. But it's okay to have these things. It's just certain things, like you mentioned, Taylor, with the contracts or the invoicing, and automated on the back end to remind you that these things need to happen. That's great. But you don't need to automatically send questionnaires, because if you're working with a reputable planner, you shouldn't need the questionnaire filled out anyway. Like their timeline needs to have everything for you. And if it doesn't, send them my way, because I'll get them fixed up right away, because timelines are our baby. We love a good timeline.
I love a good timeline. It's so fun. I mean, like everything we're saying, it's so interesting because I think it causes frustration because we're basically teaching the exact opposite of what a lot of like entry level education teaches. Like you get into the wedding industry, what do you do first? You hop on YouTube, you Google, you search, and all of these educators teach one way of doing things. And so I feel like it's Kelly and my job, and yours too, it sounds like, Kate, like to kind of have a lot of undoing, like
Yes.
a lot of undoing is happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Also, I'll say too, another slightly shameless plug because it's filled with this on this episode is that Taylor, in the shop, we have, because I love how you said it's so good, you can switch up your process depending on who you're speaking to. So that's so true. Like there's such a thing as bridging the gap, and you're not going to go from shooting, mainstream weddings directly into luxury weddings. So it is important as you grow to kind of have systems in place for you, but then also new systems that you're introducing. And it doesn't need to be like a quick 180. It can really be like, okay, I'm understanding that this is a totally new level of wedding that I'm working with now with a full service wedding planner. Let me switch up my systems and processes to best accommodate and serve that team. But then I may have you may have some couples that maybe don't have a planner. And so you kind of have to like lead them through a systems and processes that works for them too. So I love that you said that. It doesn't have to be like black and white. You can like blend it as you go and slowly weed out those old systems and processes while you're growing.
Absolutely. I think, two pieces of advice, and this is the way we grew, is every year we just tried to do better than the last. It wasn't like all of a sudden, it may seem like on Instagram we blew up or on TikTok we blew up, but we have been fighting tooth and nail. I remember the first wedding, I got an all-in $40,000 budget and thought to myself, I can get colored napkins. And I thought it was the best day ever. And now our minimum is $40,000 to spend with us. So it's like, we've come so far, but I didn't overnight make that switch. It's every year we just tried to do better than the last year. The other thing I think that's hugely important to remember as people are leveling up or transitioning is that being in the luxury industry is expensive. I have an incredibly robust website designed by some of the best people in the industry. To keep up with my Instagram is expensive because I don't have time to do it myself. I have an assistant that helps me with things and a team. So you can't go from 0 to 80. You can go from 0 to 10 maybe. So every year doing better than the last by maybe making a few tweaks. Maybe this is the year you jump from Honeybook to Dubsado. And then next year is the year you hire someone to curate your portfolio for you. And then the following year is hiring somebody to do the copywriting for you. Maybe this is the year you buy a tonic, site shop website thing. That the word is escaping me. I'm showing my true designer brain right now, but you don't have to make every change at once. And I think that's the really big problem with so much education out there. It is 40 different videos that you need to watch and change everything all at once. And really it's bite-sized incremental changes that is really what's going to get you the longevity and the sustainability of getting to the end of if your end is luxury or ultra luxury. And I will tell you, and I will give you permission, not everybody needs to be in the luxury marketplace. In fact, there's not room for all of us to be. So knowing who your clients are and where you'd like to be, I think is very important, and giving yourself permission to say, ultra luxury isn't for me. I don't want the pressure of shooting a $10 million wedding, but I'm good with the premier and the luxury weddings. That excites me, that I have fun with. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there's a lot of pressure. Honestly, like, I think it starts in childhood, like when you get into like little league or soccer or whatever, like some parents go like so hard on their kids and they're like, we're going to be in the Olympics, or like, you know what I mean? Like everyone like wants to shoot for that like tippity top, like thing. And I think it's great to kind of embrace if it's not for you. Like me personally, like whatever, my average is 15,000 this year, and I only really want to grow a little bit more, and I feel like totally content with that. Like I don't need to be on the Harper's Bazaar list, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't like serve me, but maybe Kelly does, because like that's really fun for her. So I think it's cool to kind of like also have self-reflection and like understand what is a good fit for you and your life and your goals and your personality, and you don't have to copy someone just because like they want to be in the Olympics or whatever the equivalent of that is, be working with Jose Villa every weekend.
I think that there's two ways that you can look at it. Like I'm raising 3 young boys. And so being competitive is in our house a lot. And I feel like I'm constantly saying, but did you have fun? Because
Mm.
I don't care if you win or lose, but did you have fun? And I think the wedding version of that can be like, was it a great client? Like, were they kind people? Did you work with a great family? Doesn't need to, not every client needs to be a portfolio builder. In fact, I need some people at the Ritz-Carlton, and St. Louis, which I can do in my sleep so that I can travel to Portugal with my other clients and produce at a venue I've never worked at. I don't have time for all of my clients to be portfolio building clients. They're both going to be beautiful wedding, but this client in Portugal is going to take a lot more effort from me and my team than the client that's at the Ritz, which will be my 6th time this year that I'm there. So I think that's okay. You don't have to feature every couple equally in your portfolio either. So I think it's okay to have some that pay the bills, some you cash the check, and some are going to be those portfolio builders. And that's great.
So wise. So wise. Well, do you kind of have like a formula in your head of how many you want percentage wise per year to be portfolio for you versus like the ones that are paying the bills?
I mean, I've never calculated it, but I'm fine with 50-50. I
Yeah.
think for us, 50%, we look at it more like tented weddings tented and transformations versus ballrooms and country clubs. Tented and transformations, 50% works. For me, and I would encourage other planners to look at things this way. I don't have like a set number of events I want to do every year because to me, I bill on a percentage. We've established that. I need a certain amount of revenue. And so that revenue might come from 4 events and it might come from 14. It just depends on how my year is. So what I'm looking at is how much budgets my team is managing. And so I think it might be 50-50 one year, but if we had a year where we had 4 tented weddings, the amount of infrastructure and revenue it related to a tented wedding, I would probably only do those 4 tented weddings that year. So it just kind of depends on where things fall in terms of their overall spend and how much is transformative versus, built into the space already.
That's actually such a great like subtopic, and then we'll let you go because like we're gonna be coming up on an hour, I'm sure. But
That's okay.
is I think in the wedding industry we're so hyper fixated on like the quantity of events we take on, and we do kind of forget that we're businesses and revenue and profit margins. Like they should be more key drivers versus like the number of weekends that were booked on the calendar.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's such a great thing to talk about in our Facebook group. If you guys are not already in our Facebook group, hop in there. We have a link in the show notes. But there was a really great conversation going on about price points. And in the comments, people are saying like, okay, well, how many days of coverage is that for these price points? And it was a lot of really great, transparent numbers, and seeing that people who are charging $30,000, well, okay, that's not a single day. That is, in fact, a 3-day event. And there's chatter going on of like, well, I could just book 3 weddings at 10,000 back to back to back. And it's like, well, logistically, you probably couldn't actually, because these events are not happening all in the same city. So I don't know. I just think it's fun to kind of dig into more like of those nuances, because we get so stuck on like kind of like the high level, like overarching concepts instead of like really looking at what these numbers are translating to and meeting.
Right. I think running a creative business is really challenging because you're either good at creative or you're good at business, and it's a rare breed that can do the left and right side of their brain equally. I don't know if you guys in your group were seeing like this whole Reddit subreddit categories of people sharing all this pricing, and I got a little bit on my high horse about this last week because I'm all for transparent pricing, but transparent pricing without context helps no one, and in fact, I find it very scary because you can get dragged on TikTok for saying you charge $8,000 and nobody knows how what that means. Is there an album included? Is it 4 hours of coverage? Is it 10 hours of coverage? People will be like, no one is charging $35,000 to shoot a wedding. Well, I have 2 clients paying $35,000 for someone to shoot their wedding, and you don't know the context. And so judging someone for how they spend their money is wrong, but how they spend their money without understanding the context that is in there. Because I know Jose, and I know when he goes out to shoot a wedding, he has a team of anywhere from 7 to 9 people that are going to be on site. Of course, he's going to charge more than you do to shoot it by yourself. Like, of course, like this is just purely economics. And I think that at the end of the day, saying I only shoot or I only photograph or film 6 weddings a year, you're telling me if Mindy Weiss picks up the phone and says, come shoot this event for this famous person tomorrow, here's $100,000, you're going to say no because you already booked your 6 events. There's no flipping way. So I just think looking at the revenue, looking at your profit margin, looking at what you're investing in, even talking about what's capital investments versus marketing investments, like all of those things are so important. And so it's when I'm very thankful for my accounting degree because I can dabble in this a little tiny bit, but it's really stuff we should talk about more.
Oh, I don't know if did we gloss over that at the beginning? Did you say you had an accounting degree? Because now I'm like, okay, you're speaking my language.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I went to school for marketing and accounting. So I do believe, tooting my own horn, I am one of those rare breeds who can use both the left side and the right side of their brain. Though I prefer not to have to file my own taxes. Like, guys, I'm such an accounting nerd that I went to school for tax accounting, not even audit accounting, but tax back in the early 2000s when no one was doing that. I competed in accounting competitions. One at my school was named top 5 nationally on being in this presentation on the difference between traditional accounting and fair value accounting, and then went home and was like, Dad, I am not going to be an accountant. This is not for me. I cannot do this. And then he said, you need to graduate, so figure it out. And I did. So I got a degree in marketing, which felt so much more exciting. So I'm not only like a nerd, I'm like a super big nerd.
I love it. This is Taylor's language. We've said many times on the podcast that I'm a creative that happens to have a business, and she's like a business owner that happens to have like a creative touch. So, yeah.
Which is what makes the conversations between the two of you in this podcast just so wonderful and so helpful to everyone out there. It's not just one point of view. Getting people who use more of the left or the right side, I think, is hugely important, especially knowing the commonalities between your two businesses. I mean, I think it's what makes your podcast so special.
Oh,
Thank you, Kate. And we're so happy to have had you on today and include you in our All-Star series. I think that anyone who's listening should definitely check out their Landlocked event for next February 2025, you said, right?
Yes.
Is there a link out yet where they can sign up, or that'll be coming later on?
It's out there, www.landlockedluxury.com. And if you don't mind sharing that in your show notes, I would be so appreciative. And if they can't find it, just DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to send that through.
Awesome. And where can they find you on Instagram?
It's at Kate and Company.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This conversation has just been such a breath of fresh air, so enlightening. I know it's going to be a new favorite for so many, and we hope you have a great rest of your season.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. This was so wonderful, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us in today's conversation. Please help us reach more filmmakers and photographers like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it to social media. And don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.